Welcome to a YouTube Live event of Ideas Have Consequences. And I want to begin by telling you how my day has gone today. I'm here in Cairo. This is the city of Cairo that you see behind me, a city that at least its massive urban sprawl, when you consider Giza as a city of some 35 million people. And I want to say from the outset that I really love the Egyptian people. I am absolutely fascinated with the history and the culture. And I want to say that on the front end as I go on to tell you a little bit about my experience today. Many of you will know that last week I made an unannounced visit to the USAID office here in Cairo, and it caused some degree of panic. Now, there were some people who said, "Oh, you're just exaggerating that," because every building of note in the Middle East has some measure of security, which is true, and metal detectors and scanners, this kind of thing, which is true. My hotel, and you go to some kind of major tourist sites, you're going to find that. But I was trying to communicate in that, and I think most people got it. It's just that you have trolls who, of course, want to undermine everything, because there are people out there, like Phil Vischer, for instance, who are out there suggesting that USAID is really this wonderful, benevolence organization that does so much good for so many people in the world. And the members of the posse, that is to say, shall I call them the fans of Ideas Have Consequences? But they're more than that. They're supporters of the work that I do. They're paid subscribers to things that kind of go on behind a bit of a paywall. They will tell you, they know that for years I have been following migrant caravans throughout South America, through Darien, on their way all the way up to the United States border. And I've been demonstrating for quite some time that USAID has played a role in that their public, how shall I call it, their window front is that they're an organization that helps people, and that they were in the news. They claim to be trying to stem the tide of these illegal migrations to the United States. And I say illegal migrations to the United States, not just once they're in it, because these are people who are illegal immigrants in every country they pass through other than their country of origin. And I've shown the president of the United States how USAID was using American. There you go. There's the little thing right there where you can join the posse officially, the link there. But I was showing you how USAID wasn't just that they're funding propaganda, anti-Trump, anti-American, perverse sexual agenda efforts against the United States. They weren't just doing that, but they were actually funding the invasion of the United States. And so last week, just to show you other perverse things that USAID is up to, I paid an unannounced visit to their office here in Cairo. So again, on the other side of the world, we were in South America, Central America, seeing what nefarious things USAID was doing there. And then here in Cairo, I just decided to pay a visit to their office. And what I discovered is that it is a massive compound. Now, some of you have seen this viral post that I put up about this that has, I think, 12 million views at this point. And it's because it shocked a lot of people, because the president of the United States has ordered that USAID be shut down. Now, so that you'll understand what I'm driving at here, and before I get to what I just now experienced, if you were to walk into a U.S. consulate or embassy somewhere in the world, or let's just say your local DMV or Social Security office, and you were to say, "What do you do?" Well, what goes on here? I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm curious to know, what do you do with my tax dollars here? Well, I think you get a reasonable response to that. You would get a response like, well, we here at the Social Security office, we determine the eligibility of people for Social Security, and we issue payments to those people who are eligible, and we also issue Social Security numbers. You get an answer like that. Or here, we We give out licenses. We do driver's tests, or you get your license plate here. Pay your taxes on your car. But their signage reads U.S. in one color, AID in another color. So they're stressing U.S. aid, USAID, U.S. aid. And then it says from the American people. Now, the American people are learning that this is all bullshit, that this isn't from the American people. This is a slush fund of money that's been robbed from the American people, that is being used to fund any number of nefarious agendas around the world. Still, you would think that when I walked into USAID last week and asked, "Hey, what do you guys do here? What goes on at USAID?" that the kind of answer I'd get is, "Well, we do exactly what the name says, United States Agency for International Development. We provide aid to the developing world, and it comes in a variety of forms." But that's not what happened. What happened was they went into a kind of panic mode. They were quite concerned about me, this cheeky American that had walked past their security. I hadn't, driven my car through some kind of barrier and smashed into things, or run past security, or made any kind of threats. I walked in as a U.S. citizen into an organization that my tax dollars, that your tax dollars, if you're an American, go to. And I asked a very simple question: what do you guys do here? And I also asked, are you guys, I understand the President of the United States is shutting down this organization. Are you guys complying with, the President's public, and I want to stress, public order? And those kind of questions just sent them into absolute panic mode. Next thing you know, they want my ID. They want to detain my driver. And so I left the building. And then I, of course, posted that tweet. But today, before doing this YouTube Live, since the subject of the YouTube Live today is USAID, I thought, you know what? I'll drive over there again. This time, I won't try to go through, security past the barrier. I'm just going to drive by the building, and this time, assess what's going on from the outside. But guess what? This time, they were apparently ready for us, and so they stopped the car, blocked the car. I'd violated no laws. By their own acknowledgement, I had violated no laws. And so that you will understand how USAID works in the third world, all the security are, in this case, Egyptian, but USAID in Colombia, the security are Colombians, and USAID Argentina, their employees are, many of them, Argentinians. So this isn't, like the Marines, standing out in front of this place. This is a security firm that is hired, an Egyptian security firm that is hired by the United States government with your tax dollars. And so these were Egyptians. But I want to be clear that as I pointed out to an Egyptian who was apologizing to me for what happened today, I said, look, this isn't really so much about your government. It's about my government. It's about my government, as I will demonstrate. So they blocked the car, and they want my passport, which I refused to give. I was willing to show it to them, let them take a picture of it while I was sitting inside the car, but I did not let them have it. And let me just say this to you: your passport is your ticket in and out of a country, and without it, you can't move. And of course, they know that. So once your passport is taken, you don't know what's going to happen to that. You don't know if they're going to give it back to you or not. And since I'd violated no laws, I did not agree to give it back to them. Then they wanted my phone, and I refused to give them my phone as well. Again, state my crime. What is it that I've done? Why are you detaining the car? So what they did was they took the driver's license. And of course, he can't work without that. He's an Egyptian, and he needs his driver's license in order to be able to, to do his job. I mean, if he gets caught without that, but they had also indicated to him in Arabic that even though there had been no arrest, no official charge, that if we tried to leave, they would by force endeavor to stop us. And so we were being held, but not really being charged with anything. But one of the officers said to me that it's under the guise of that they're just doing their job, even though they knew who I was. So they have my passport. They're Googling me and they say, "You were here the other day." So they knew who I was. They knew that I was a guy who had been there the other day. And maybe this was some kind of payback, this sort of harassment. And they're on the phone, presumably with somebody inside the USAID compound. And we're talking a massive compound. So you'll understand this. I didn't take any pictures of it today, but you can go on Google Earth and you can see it. There's no street view, but you can see the aerial view of the USAID compound. This is not an office in a strip mall. This is a fortress. It is it is an enormous complex. Now, what some people have said, again, there is truth in this, that that this kind of security is involved with any U.S. facility, particularly after 9/11. Again, there is some truth in this. However, the secretive nature of this, the refusal to answer very simple public questions, and furthermore, the effort to harass me the first time that I went there. But in case there was any doubt about that, on this occasion, I'm not even through the barriers. And again, by their own admission, I hadn't asked to go through the barriers. And by their own admission, I'd violated no laws. But still, they detain the car. They want to take my passport. They want to take my phone. They want to delete videos, any video or pictures that are on my phone. And for the next, I don't know, hour and a half, I didn't think I was going to make it here. I ended up having a moment just to call Lawrence Fox, my good friend, who's also the co-host of WTF, and say, "Lawrence, I may go dark here. I'm not sure I'm not going to disappear here because they're suggesting that, I might be some kind of terrorist, even though they know that I'm not. And if that's the case, I'm supposed to be doing a YouTube live in, 4 hours or whatever it was at the time." And I said, "You got to be prepared, to go on there and tell people that, why I've just suddenly not shown up and why perhaps I've disappeared." So again, this was all going on for quite some time at this particular agency. And again, I want to stress to you that USAID, the President of the United States, has ordered them shut down. I am a United States taxpayer. I asked the very simple question twice: "What do you do here? What's going on here? Are you shutting down? Are you guys in the process of shutting down?" And you would think that the answer to that might be, "Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. President Trump has issued an executive order shutting down this organization, so we're in the process of closing shop." But that isn't what happened. They didn't want anything about what was taking place there discussed, much less in a public way. Now, there's more to this story, and I'll tell you that once I'm out of the country. But ultimately, there was much discussion with a variety of people, many pictures of my visa, of my passport, wanting to go through my phone. I held my phone while somebody reached through the window of the car. I didn't really want to get out of the window of the car. I didn't want to get out of the car. I conducted all business through the window of the car, and there were efforts to try to get me to enter into the compound, and particularly into the state security office, which I politely, didn't physically, I just politely refused to do. So all of this, was going on for quite some time, and there was a lot of concern about, who I might be. Let me rephrase that. There was a concern about who I might be. They knew very well who I was. They knew very well that I'm a writer and that I've done work for everybody from BBC to CNN to you name it. They knew that all of that was the case. So they weren't worried, that I was some kind of Al-Qaeda operative who's, trying to blow something up. But they were worried what I might report and what I might say. And let me just tell you For those of you who don't know, I'm not a newbie at this. I've been in roughly 70 countries. I've been on nuclear bases. I've grown up on military installations. I was born on one. I know how organizations like that, I know how security works. I know what that process looks like. This is the behavior of an intelligence organization. This is not the behavior of an organization that ostensibly is, again, the window front is about simply providing aid to the third world. And the effort to prevent, any kind of discussion about what this looks like, I find to be, highly, highly irregular. There's no degree of Marna asked the question, were they armed? The answer is yes, or at least some of them were armed. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. By the way, I don't know if you can see them here, but no, you're not going to be able to see it. But right outside the window there are the pyramids, and I wish I could show them to you because there's a fabulous view of the pyramids right over here. And unfortunately, the sun is going down right behind them, which makes for a spectacular view. But my camera on this laptop is such that it's just going to be a washout. It's just going to be a whiteout. You're not going to be able to see that. But anyway, I'm happy to take other questions that you might have. But again, USAID, I've been telling you for some time that USAID has been up to some very nefarious activities all over the world. Let's just suppose that here in Egypt, that it's all on the up and up. Everything they do here is about feeding people and about development of the third world in a positive way. Then why react this way? Why the fear? Why the efforts on this occasion to harass me? I did call the United States Embassy while I was sitting on the phone, and I want to explain to you what you got going on here. You got a shadow government, and then you got an authentic government. You have, we know, extremely corrupt elements inside of USAID. Whether or not those are the people who are inside the building at Cairo or not, we know that there's been massive corruption at USAID. And then you have the authentic government that is to say the Trump-Vance government that is now coming in and starting to slowly take control. But their people are not fully in place yet. And so you still have within the United States government what I will call a shadow government, a lingering Obama-Biden government that is fundamentally anti-American. And it's aggressively anti-American and have their own agenda. That's been, being exposed right and left by Elon Musk and Doge, and then you have, of course, Donald Trump and Vance, and the things that they are themselves doing. So you have competing entities inside of the same government, and so whoever's controlling the Egyptian security forces that were dealing with me today and detained me for quite some time, along with my driver. And again, threats of arrest that I might be some kind of terrorist or something to that effect. Whoever's controlling them, that's shadow government. Then you have the authentic government. You begin to understand a little bit of the way this works and the complexity involved, meaning that the president of the United States, once he takes the oath of office and enters the Oval Office, we tend to think of him as having total control over the United States government. That just simply isn't the case. Now, we hope that eventually he has control of the government, but he doesn't as fully as yet. And there are insidious elements within that are working against him. And the kind of things that I might expose, they're concerned about that. They're concerned about that viral tweet. They're concerned about the issues that I raised. They're concerned about the fact the president of the United States is very aware because of the good work that we were doing here of what they're doing in South and Central America. So you begin to see the problem of what's happening here. So today was rather a tense day. And again, I just want to stress this. I was outside of the facility by their own acknowledgement, I had broken no laws. I had done nothing wrong. At one point, one of the Egyptian security guys said, you have to have an Egyptian government permit to take a picture of an Egyptian government building. And I said, I've taken a picture of a United States government building. There is a difference. And I think he had to recognize that that was the case. But somebody high up, you could see them on the phone, with lots of people throughout this entire time walking around the car, again, trying to get me to come inside and to hand over my passport and hand over my phone, which I would not do, and to get me to enter the security service office, which I would not do. But eventually, somebody, obviously very senior, called, and they said, let him go. Frankly, I think this was a very stupid thing to do. I mean, if I'd just come and taken a picture and left, there's no real story there, from their point of view. But the fact that they responded like this, Valdo's protest too much. I'm sorry, could you put that question back up again? Somebody asked a question there, and I was following a thought there. You said it looked like U.S. intelligence ops. Is that why they're laundering? I got something in the way here. Let me move it. Laundering U.S. I cannot say with certainty, Josh, what they're laundering the money for. Now, I can offer you my theory on that. Jonathan, I presume other people can see the question that has been asked, or do I need to repeat the question? Maybe you can text me and let me know. The tech team is back in the United States and are completely different, time zone than what I'm in right here. But let's see. Let me read this text message. It's very clear from the tech people to know whether or not I have to repeat this stuff or whether or not you actually see it. Okay, they can. Good. So I don't have to repeat the question to you. Josh, my theory is that Ukraine and USAID are the two biggest, though not the only, means of laundering money, but the two largest means of laundering money for Democrats and the globalists. Now, you have seen, I've alleged this all along, but I also say it with full acknowledgement that, I wasn't a finance major. I'm not an accountant. I'm not degreed or experienced in international business per se. Now, I believe that if the Pulitzer Prize, actually meant anything anymore, a Pulitzer Prize would await an intrepid reporter who had the chops, the finance background, to follow the money and see where it's going. Now, it may be that Musk's team is able to do this, but as I said on the last episode of Ideas Have Consequences, did you notice that Zelensky is slowly turning states' evidence? I wouldn't be surprised to see that guy get assassinated, honestly. I want to be clear, I'm not making a threat against him. I wish him no harm. Rather, I think he's in danger. And that's because he knows a little bit about where the bodies are buried. He does know some of that. And I think it's very funny that for years, while Biden was president of the United States, you didn't hear Zelensky make one complaint about corruption. But now that there's a new sheriff in town, Zelensky said that of the, I think, roughly $177 billion that was sent to Ukraine, that $100 million of it disappeared somewhere in the transit. Now, he wouldn't have said that before, but now he's saying it. So Zelensky is suddenly becoming star witness for the Trump regime, the Trump administration, against the Biden administration and against the Democrat Party, which we know is extremely corrupt. But the point that I'm simply making here is I have alleged all along that the reason billions of dollars are being sent to Ukraine isn't because Democrats give a rat's ass for Ukrainian democracy or Ukrainian freedom. They don't care about that a bit. They don't care about it in the United States. Why would they care about it in Ukraine? What they care about are two things: enriching themselves and toppling Putin, who is not on board with their agenda. He's not a globalist. Putin. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting to you that Putin is a great guy. He isn't. But you see, Democrats, when they say that they're opposed to Putin because, he censors the press, Democrats censor the press. They are opposed to Putin because Putin is anti-democratic. They're anti-democratic. In other words, Putin is everything they are and want to be more of. The only thing they have against Putin is that Putin is not on board with the globalist agenda. And again, they want to use Ukraine to launder their money. Billions are sent there and then sent back into the pockets of American politicians, to European politicians, and to fund the globalist agenda around the world. I was screaming when I was pointing all this out to you of what's happening in South America with this massive human trafficking op. And that's what it is a massive human trafficking op. I would argue the largest human trafficking op in modern history. I was screaming that when people kept saying that it was George Soros that was funding it, I was saying to you, Soros doesn't have the money for this. Soros does not have Elon Musk kind of money. Soros does not have Bill Gates kind of money. Soros is not a billionaire that's in that league. Soros is, I want to say that last I looked, his net worth was something like $8 to $10 billion. That's a lot of money to be sure, but it isn't enough money to do what I'm saying. I mean, unless he, bankrupted himself. This takes a lot more money than that. It's a much, much, much continental-sized operation that they've been running. Now, again, I want to point out to you, when I first started following these caravans in, 2019, 2020, the whole thing was ad hoc. It was all ad hoc. It was, Trump was still president of the United States. He was endeavoring to have some kind of a border. They were still crossing the United States border illegally, but there weren't U.S. agencies, at least not that I saw, that were assisting them in the process of doing it. It was people, illegals, helping each other, chiefly by Facebook groups, where they were telling each other things like, hey, this is a place where you can spend the night, and here's a place where you can buy some supplies for Darien, and hey, here's some warnings about going to this particular place or going here or going there. That's what it was. By I'd say maybe by 2022, it was a well-oiled machine, and it was a machine that was being run by USAID and a series of NGOs. That's what was happening. Now, here I am in Cairo, and I'm just going into a USAID office and just simply asking the very simple question, what do you guys do here? Are you guys complying with the President of the United States' order? And what do they try to do? Want to take my passport, want to detain me, want to detain my driver. And this time they tried to catch us outside of the compound itself. We weren't even inside it. Does that not strike you as weird? If it should. And again, I tell you this as someone who has been on U.S. nuclear bases abroad, who's grown up on military installations where security was a top priority. This was the kind of response you would get at a NATO nuclear base or at an intelligence agency. So I want you to be aware of this. I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm not out of the country as yet. This is very, very odd behavior. It's very strange behavior. And ultimately, I was released. Pam, don't understand why our taxes are going to so many other countries and promoting things normal U.S. citizens are against. Pam, the reason you don't understand that is because you're a sensible, normal American citizen trying to go about your daily life and do the normal things Americans do. Presumably take care of your family, and perhaps you have you work outside of the home or in it, which is much harder work. And you're just doing the kind of things that normal people do. But you see, the way Democrats are operating, along with their globalist allies, which, by the way, includes many Republicans, rhinos, as we call them, the kind of things that what they're doing is they're pushing a fundamentally anti-American agenda. That's one thing. Second thing is that they're pushing a perverse sexual agenda. And then, of course, they are enriching themselves in the process of doing it. So imagine that I have, access to billions of US dollars and I just spend it the way I want to spend it. And it's not because I have the approval of Congress to do it. You see, the way USAID has worked, and if I had a whiteboard here, I only have the pyramids behind me, poor me. But if I had a whiteboard behind me, what I would want to demonstrate to you is USAID is meant to be an end run on any kind of vote by Congress or the American people. This is the way Democrats work. Think about it. Right now, everything that President Trump is doing, they're trying to block with the courts, and that's because that's the way the left works. They want to govern through a judicial oligarchy. They're never interested in a referendum on anything, whether it's on gay marriage or it's USAID. What they want to do is they want to siphon away funds from you and govern you without your consent. This is what J.D. Vance was saying when he was recently speaking a couple of days ago. Gave a brilliant speech. I listened to the whole thing this morning. It's not long, by the way, and you can find it all over social media and I'm sure on YouTube. We spoke in Munich at the security conference there, as he was saying, you guys are ignoring the will of the people. You are governing without consent of the will of the people. You are actively endeavoring to suppress the will of the people and their right to disagree with you. And then he said, and this raises some very, very interesting questions, troubling questions about who the good guys actually are. So that was very upsetting to a lot of people. USAID is an effort to, how shall I put it? USAID is an effort to have a Democrat foreign policy that is unofficial, run through a shell company that ostensibly exists for a completely separate reason. Now, does USAID do some good things? Sure, I think they do. I think they have to. I think they have to take of all the wealth, of all the money that they have to take some of it and populate the window front of the organization to make it look like they are doing good things. So yes, they'll feed the poor here, or help poor farmers learn to farm more efficiently, and they'll build some clean water wells or what have you. They will do things like that in order to give a good window front to what they're actually up to. But again, I talked to a USAID employee, somebody who works inside the building here in Cairo, who says, I don't even know what we do inside that building. Meaning he has a low-level job. He knows what bit he does, but he's suspicious about the broader agenda there. Now, I'm just simply raising those questions. But to even ask those questions is to cause panic. And that's an indicator to you that there's something very troubling happening here. And again, it raises very serious questions about whether or not they are complying with the President of the United States, again, public, it's not secret, his public order that they are to shut down. Other questions? Maybe as the sun's going down here, keep that question up there while I try to show you the pyramids. Let's see if I can do this. I'm not very good at this. No, I'm terrible. Sorry. What the hell is feckless? This is Robert. What the hell is feckless Congress doing? Getting ready for vacation. Yes, well, you said it well, Robert. Congress is feckless and ineffective, and we are faced with, and of course our hope is that. Whoa, I'm getting a call here. Hello. I don't know what happened there, but hello. Excuse me, people, this is live. And so when it's live, I can't edit this crap out. I thought that may be the producer calling me to tell me that I no longer had a link with you people and I wasn't even talking to you anymore. So anyway, what we're dealing with in Congress now is a level of corruption in our government in general, is a level of corruption never before seen in US government. I was discussing with my friends today a little bit about Watergate. Watergate is a big nothing. I mean, absolutely a big nothing. It was a bunch of incompetents working for Nixon, breaking into the Watergate Hotel, where the Democrat Party had their headquarters, in the hopes of finding something that could be used to help Nixon be reelected. Now, Nixon was going to be reelected in a landslide anyway. But this is what they did. Now, just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that was a good thing or that it was a legal thing. It was not. Rather, what I'm trying to say to you is that is a molehill when we are comparing it to the level of corruption we are seeing in the United States government here. And when it was suggested to me here that I was some sort of spy, I said, yes, against my own government, not yours, mine. What my government is doing here. What are they up to? What are they doing with the money that is coming from United States taxpayers? And where's the transparency as it relates to this? Now, that's what's happening. And when we're talking about our politicians right now throughout the Western world, and this relates to the World Economic Forum, where I have been, and you know that I've been, meaning all of this connects. All of this connects. All of these corrupt politicians are connected with the World Economic Forum. And if you notice, they are all taking their orders from there. And order number one is to ignore what their voters, what their constituents want. Used to, politicians paid some heed to American politicians anyway, paid some heed to what the American people wanted, because if they weren't, they were out on their ear. The Biden administration, you'll notice, governed with a total disregard of what the American people wanted. And they were arrogant enough to believe that they would remain in power anyway. And that's because they cheat. It's just on this occasion, they couldn't cheat on a scale sufficient enough to carry it off. That's the only thing that prevented them from remaining in power. But we're talking about corrupt politicians who are you're seeing it throughout the Western world, where they are ignoring their constituents. They are governing with hostility against their citizens, where they are fundamentally anti-Christian. They want open borders. They absolutely do nothing when we're talking about another religion that has made its way into the United States, and where they are using tax dollars to fund overseas projects and purposes. So that in the United States, after three major disasters, North Carolina, Maui, and California, what did you see the Biden administration doing on behalf of American citizens? Nothing. And they made a point of doing nothing. It was a kind of in your face, we're going to do nothing. And it's been in your face about the monies that are going overseas and funding and pushing a war that most Americans know little about and know even less that they want to be involved in. So for Trump to come in and begin doing the things that he's doing now, I think is it's music to my ears. I just think it's absolutely wonderful, the exposure of corruption and what's taking place. And by the way, at USAID today, the guy was asking me, so you're a journalist, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I mean, you do read the news, right? You do know that USAID is in the news. You are aware that USAID is a major story right now. And he said, yeah, but what does that have to do with Egypt? And I said, well, nothing to do with Egypt per se, but there's the building right there for USAID. I mean, it's right there, and I'm here. So I just thought I'd come and ask a few questions. Why should that upset you guys so much? Other questions? This is from Thrith. It's an interesting name, by the way. We are tired of all the money and resources being given over to nations that hate us. Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth to that. And by the way, I don't think the Egyptians hate Americans. In fact, I would suggest to you that Egyptians are sophisticated enough to understand, as most people are around the world, that even those people who don't like what the United States government is doing, for instance, most Egyptians are very, pro-Palestinian, and there are obvious cultural reasons for that. But I wouldn't say that they're anti-American. I would say that most Egyptians very friendly. They like Americans. I am being asked constantly by Egyptians for my photograph. They are all convinced that I'm either Pierce Brosnan or I am, who's the other guy, Michael McDonald, or Jeff Bridges. I get that all the time. And of course, they could also think, I'm Colonel Sanders, from Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. But the point being, I get that all the time. And they're always friendly. Can I have a picture with you? Will you stand with me? Can I get a picture? And a lot of them want to practice their English. Yesterday, I took some friends out to the pyramids. I've been out there many times, but we were having a meeting and we were talking, and that's a good place to just walk around while at the same time, they can take in the specter that is the Great Pyramids of Giza, which, by the way, are very much worth visiting. I would encourage you, to come to Egypt. Be wise, be sensible, stay in a good, safe, reputable hotel with proper security, and have a good guide who can take you out there. But you'll find the Egyptian people to be very friendly, and even while they might be hostile to United States government policy. And as a rule, I'm not getting into conversations with them about politics or religion anyway. But I would just want to stress to you that, as I said at the very beginning of this, I am fascinated with Egypt's history, with its culture. I really enjoy the Egyptian people, who could not have been more kind to me, barring the state security forces that I encountered today. But even then, I give them by and large pass, because they're operating at the instructions of United States shadow government. That's what's happening. I hope you're understanding what I'm trying to communicate to you here. And I'll say this in more detail once I'm back in Europe. But I do hope that you're following what I'm trying to communicate to you here. But the average Egyptian, they like Americans, they watch American movies, they listen to American music, and they want you to like them too. And for the most part, I do. Yesterday, I have to tell you this little story. It's poignant, and it's one that moves me. Traveling as much as I do, I see poor people all over the world. And the poor of the third world are not like the poor in the United States. That's not to say there aren't genuine poor people in the United States. There are a lot of them. But in the United States, there's plenty of benevolence that's available, often through charities, usually Christian charities, sometimes not even through organizations, but just by individual Christians. A person who will help you, who is kind to you, who is generous to you. And then you have government agencies that are also available to help people who are poor. So in the United States, there are opportunities for people who are poor. And then on top of that, we're all pretty aware of the fact that there are plenty of people in the United States who pretend to be poor and who've gamed the system. And I think most of us, are sick of seeing that sort of thing. In the third world, the poor people you see are genuinely poor, and they are usually, by our standards, dirt poor, like literally dirt poor. If you're living in a double wide in the United States, and it's reasonably well kept and clean, you are a king relative to the kind of poverty that I witnessed, that I see in the third world. And I saw just a couple of days ago in Garbage City, Macadam, where all the Christians live. And that's a story that we're going to tell in an episode of Ideas Have Consequences, because it's an extremely important story that I want you to know about. And it's one of the reasons that I'm here. I'm also visiting with a friend of mine, an Egyptian bishop, a Nigerian bishop, who was here to see me because I couldn't get into his country and he couldn't get into mine, but I could get into an African country and he can get into it as well. So Cairo became the place that we are meeting. And his people are terribly persecuted, more than 130 of them murdered in just the last year. He himself, there's been efforts to assassinate him. And having been in Nigeria myself, I can assure you that all of this is 100% true. And I've seen it firsthand, depending on where you go. Now, you can go to Nigeria in a way that you have lots of security and or maybe your skin color is such that they're not particularly interested in you in the first place. But it's an extremely dangerous country, and the poverty there is very, very real. So, little story I relate to you. So when we were out at the pyramids yesterday, I generally am not carrying much by way of cash, but I did just happen to have I don't know, maybe about $10 or $15 in Egyptian currency in my pockets. And I generally keep that on me just because you usually have to pay just to use the toilet. Okay, so you walk in and you hand somebody a few bucks and you can go and use the restroom. And if you don't have cash, it can get a little bit awkward. So as we're leaving, I'm sitting in the front seat of the car, and some Egyptian children are banging on the window and they're trying to sell me things. And they're, what you would expect. It's a little, keychain of the Sphinx, or it's a paperweight of Khufu, the biggest of the pyramids, or something like that. And I roll down the window, and I don't want any of their things because I want these children to be able to sell these things. So I don't want to take any of their goods. But I roll down the window and I'm feeling around in my pockets to see what money I have. And there were two of them, and they were both under 10. And so I hand one of them the equivalent of about $5. And then the other one, I gave him about $5. And I said, and they tried to give me something. They're holding a tray with all these things on it and told me I could pick what I wanted. And I said, no, you keep it. You sell it. And as we're driving away, we're starting to accelerate, and they start running beside the car and banging on the window again. And I roll down the window, and both of them are handing me something from their tray. And they said, keep it. It is a gift to you. Thank you for helping me. Now, to me, these children, I wish I could go back and find them again and give them a hug. But these are children who are out there working. They're selling whatever they can in order to feed themselves, to feed their families. These are not criminals. And they were so insistent on thanking me, and that I take something from that tray. Do you get what I'm trying to tell you? What I'm trying to communicate to you here is, don't demonize everybody around the world. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that anybody on here was. I just want to communicate this. There's corruption in every government around the world, and right now ours is one of the worst. But where I'm able to, and I want to feel great. I do feel great hostility towards that. But my hostility doesn't extend to the ordinary person who's just trying to eke out a living among a nation's poor. I don't feel that. That's not where I am. Indeed, I feel that as a Christian, I have some responsibility to those people. And one of the things I can do is I can be kind to them, and on occasion be generous to them. And I wish I'd had more money in my pocket to give them. As it was about $5 a piece. But for them, that's an awful lot of money. But you understand what I'm trying to say to you. Let's direct our anger at the people who are running this system, about the evil politicians here. Somebody that comes to my mind as I think to this. If you don't know who Phil Vischer is, Phil Vischer is, I'm not sure, I don't know if he's the creator or a creator of VeggieTales. Okay. I liked VeggieTales back in the day, and we bought them for our children and let them watch them. They're, pretty wholesome. Phil Vischer has become basically an apologist for evil of every kind on the left. I don't care what it is, he's going to defend it. And Phil Vischer is supposedly an evangelical Christian. Frankly, I have my doubts. But he put up like a podcast he's doing. He's in discussion with people talking about how Trump's executive order shutting down USAID, how it's going to harm so many people around the world. I have to tell you, I see that and I'm just full of rage, because while Phil is sitting, I don't know, where the studio is, I don't know if it's in his house or somewhere else, but while he's sitting there in his armchair pontificating about all these things, I'd like for Phil to go to Colombia. I'd like for him to risk himself in cartel country in Western Colombia. I'd like to see him risk himself in Darien. I'd like to see him enter the migrant camps in and around Mexico City. I'd like for Phil to see what USAID is doing. And they don't care what they're doing to people. But you see, here's a guy who's taking this self-righteous, pompous position like he really cares about people. Where are you, Phil? If you cared about him, you'd be here. If you cared about him, you'd be in Colombia. If you cared about him, you might make an appearance at the WEF and listen to what these people are actually saying. See, it's all nonsense. It's all this pompous, self-righteous, holier than thou, high and mighty verbiage, vomit about all the good that people on their side are doing. You're mutilating children. You're annihilating the unborn. Open borders is destroying lives, allowing criminals, known criminals, to enter our country. Not deporting known violent criminals from our country is evil. But you see, these are people who are all insulated from the kinds of policies that they enact and the kind of policies that they advocate. That's the reality. Let me see if I can see the pyramids now. Maybe, because I really do want you guys to be able to see the pyramids. The pyramids are cool. Hell, I don't think I could do it. I'm terrible. RB has given $5 for you to hand out to the kids. I'm going to guess that RB that's the name of someone on the channel. Is somebody who's watching? If that's the case, I will make sure that I hand that out to a child. Be honest, I'm not sure I'm going to be near any more children. I leave here quite soon, so I'm not sure that I will, but I will do my best. I promise I will do my best. And if I see such children, that I have the opportunity in order to do that. And by the way, the tech people are texting me at the moment. And so I think we're good. Are there any more questions? It's all good. So what you're saying is our U.S. shadow government, Obama, Klein, others are running these USAID offices overseas. Well, I'm not saying that, Obama himself he's the one who's sitting, in an office somewhere in a cave running it all. What I'm saying is that the Democrat Party, that globalists are running it all. Who specifically is doing it? I think we're talking about an army of people who are doing it. But you have seen in recent days, again, just to be clear, so you don't think I'm just inventing this. I mean, we've seen in recent days 50 some odd $50 million that, one of these people sent to hotels in New York City. They were hoping to get away with that. And Doge discovered it, and this person was fired. But my immediate thought on that was fired. I mean, I was trying to think if I worked for a company where if I'd misappropriated, you know, $58 million, I would think it'd be more than losing my job. I think I'd be looking at jail time, and quite rightly, in a situation like that. That's what these people are doing. And in other words, what they're doing is quite criminal. So yes, I am saying to you that USAID, I think that it has. I don't think everybody who works for USAID is evil. I think there are people there who are idealistic and really want to do good around the world. They see themselves as a kind of UNICEF, as a as an agency that really is helping people. I think they have people like that there. However, um, the real agenda is something different that is hidden from people at a lower level. Other questions? These Thrift says these children probably have a greater place in Christ's kingdom than you or I. I hope so. I don't feel competitive about Christ's kingdom or where I rank in it. I'm quite happy to be there, and I'll be happy to be a waiter in God's kingdom. But I really, really hope that children like that are there. And listen, by the way, and I haven't gotten real theological on ideas have consequences, but maybe I will at some point. By the way, put that question back up there or comment, because I will comment on it. Um, I think Jesus's net is much broader than most of us want to make it. I think that he's collecting souls all over the world. And so do I. I think there will be children like this in heaven. You better believe it. He says that the kingdom is made up of such as these, speaking of children. So do I believe that they'll be there? Yeah, I believe there'll be a lot of children like that. And this is something else to bear in mind. Scripture says that many have entertained angels unaware. For all I know, those were angels there to test me and those who are with me. It's possible. You need to bear that in mind. It's All Good has given $50 for you to hand out to children. That is very kind of you. It's All Good. I will give that to one of my Egyptian friends here if I'm able. I will endeavor to do that so that he can hand it out to children, because I'm not sure that I'll be able to do it because I'm leaving the country rather quickly. Marna says, do you see the American citizenry getting complacent with the primary in 2 years, or have our eyes been opened enough to continue this momentum? Marna, that's actually a great question. Right now, I think that MAGA, and I think the people who are voting the MAGA agenda, but who don't necessarily think of themselves as, part of MAGA, I think their eyes are wide open right now. And I think that there's loads of momentum to carry the president's agenda straight on through to the end. But I do fear complacency, particularly as it regards voting. The mechanisms of voting. We can't hope to win all elections just by sheer numbers. And I think that the president, who said yesterday that he was now putting his attention on the way voting is done and trying to get away from machines to paper ballots and this kind of thing, I think that's very, very wise, because otherwise I think in 2 years we're going to see, Democrats are just going to try something else. If one terrorist attack is worked by storming the cockpit and taking it over and flying planes into buildings, the response usually is to fortify the doors. But the next terrorist attack doesn't come like that. It comes in a different form. And that's why there's a saying that generals are usually fighting the last war, meaning that they assume that because World War I was trench warfare, that World War II will be trench warfare. And guess what? It wasn't. And therefore, the Maginot Line was pointless. Actually didn't do any good at all. So I think that the next time, Democrats are going to have a different strategy because we've caught on to them in one form, so they're going to try it in another. But I don't feel like the American people are complacent at the moment. Again, this is very early. We're 3 weeks into the what are we? Yeah, 3 weeks into this second Trump presidency. I don't sense any complacency yet, but again, it's early. But I don't fear complacency. I fear that we won't foresee the way the attack will come the next time. Next question. If there is another question. Okay, so I'm told you've asked all the questions that you want to ask. Listen, I would ask that you pray for me, that you pray for my team, that you pray for the President of the United States, you pray for the Vice President of the United States, you pray for our magistrates. Scripture commands us to do that. I think they're doing incredible work at present, but whenever you threaten strongholds, there's massive pushback. And whenever you're threatening somebody's source of illegal income, there is massive pushback. And threats will be made, and you'll encounter the kind of things that I encountered today and may yet encounter. So let us be in prayer. There's only so much that any one of us can do, or even all of us collectively can do. And that's where we pray, because the Lord tells us that he will respond to his people. He says, turn from your sin and I will answer you. And I believe that. I believe I serve a mighty God. And sometimes people ask me why I do what I do. I'll tell you exactly why I do what I do. I do it because it's my calling. I do it because it's my calling. It is my mission in this life. I make a distinction between goals and mission. My goals are short term, say lose weight or, read more or, whatever it may be. But my mission is very clear. I destroy arguments and every lofty pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and I construct them. That's Second Thessalonians 10:5. And I hope that along the way that I expose some of this corruption and that I ease the suffering of people in these circumstances, because one of the things that I have the power to do is to draw some measure of attention to these things. And not because my podcast is the most popular one out there, it certainly isn't, but because sometimes the people who are watching it are people in power. And every now and then it's somebody like the President of the United States who says, Larry, I'm going to do something about this. And that's terrific when that happens. So it's what I hope you would do for me if I were somebody who was being trafficked through South America and onto the United States border. And it's certainly something that I can do for them. So I thank all of you who support me, who support the work that I do, Fixed Point Foundation, that you support it financially. I'm very, very grateful for you, for the people who pray for me, and for the people who, just go on YouTube and just make kind remarks. You don't know how much that means to me. There are people who come on there and, call me an idiot and all kinds of things. And I certainly get my share of that. But, the kind remarks of people that it's clear to me that they're paying attention, they've actually watched, listened to an episode of Ideas Have Consequences, or read an article or one of my books, and offer thoughtful commentary, that means a lot to me. It really does. And it puts a bounce in my step. So I want you to know that I'm very grateful for all of you. I'm very grateful to the posse. Thank you so much for being members of the posse. And I look forward to talking to you a little bit more freely once I get back to Europe, which should be in just a few days. So I hope all of you will take care. So this has been another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton, in a YouTube live event from Cairo. Thank you so much.